Welcome to another episode of the Invisible Architecture Interviews. And I'm so happy, I'm Carol Assad, and I'm so happy to have Angela T. Smith back with me. Two interviews ago, she came on with remote viewing, and we're continuing it today. And I got lots of great feedback and questions and all of that. And she's generously offering all of her information in her interviews with the ETs printout. And so I'm going to be sending that out to all of my members. So great. Welcome, Angela.
Well, thank you for having me on your show again. This is great.
So much great information and amazing. And it's so current now because there's such this ET thing, UFO remote viewing. It's all like really made a big
there's a lot of interest.
A lot of interest. So just to a few things from the last one that I kind of missed before we get into this. You're working with Robert Bigelow and all of that. The Amelia Earhart, like when you were remote viewing, will you tell us when you did that and what I find that so interesting, and with the History Channel, what they picked up and yeah.
Right, yeah, I'll tell you real quick, try and encapsulate it. The first time, the first time I was tasked, like we call it tasking, on where's Amelia Earhart and her co-pilot and her plane. This was from an industrial engineer who was more interested in the plane than where Amelia was. So I found, that they came down on a sandy atoll and were able to wade ashore. And then they were picked up, I perceived in the remote viewing I did, they were picked up by some Japanese soldiers in little boats and taken to a larger boat. And he took that information, but it didn't help him find the plane that he was looking for. And then years later, I was tasked again by an industrial chemist who was interested in where Amelia Earhart was.
Okay.
I gave him the information I already had, plus some additional information where I found her in a prison. Japanese, and I saw her on the boat, and she was sick on the boat, and then I put it out to other viewers, remote viewers, who I call the Nevada Remote Viewing Group. These are viewers who will take on cases and projects, sometimes paid, sometimes just volunteer. And they're like my volunteer fighting force, I can call on them when needed. And they come forward and say, yeah, I'll do it. And then we found her on Saipan Island in the middle of the Pacific there with the Japanese. And she was a prisoner along with her co-pilot. No news of the plane. We couldn't pick up the plane at all. And supposedly she died there. And then years later, about 2 years ago, two researchers went to the archives in Washington, D.C., found in Navy archives information there that she was indeed a prisoner on Saipan Island in the Pacific. And the rumors were that she died there.
But the Navy knew this.
They knew it. And I asked a colleague of mine who'd been in the military, he was a pilot. I said, why didn't they just go and get her?
Yeah.
We have to understand the times. The Americans at that time had just broken the Chinese code.
Okay.
And if they had let it be known that they knew about Amelia, then the Japanese would have known that their code was broken, and they would have, probably killed Amelia, which I think they did.
Oh, I see.
Would change the code, and the Americans then wouldn't be able to know what was happening in the Pacific.
I see.
So she was basically sacrificed.
Yeah. And then the History Channel picked it up, right?
That's right. And the History Channel did a long documentary by, I forget the names of the researchers, but you can find it online. And researchers went out there and they interviewed locals who were alive at the time that Amelia was there.
Mm.
And they remember her being in Garapan prison.
Mhm.
And our viewer data matched the prisons, the square blocky prisons and the bars and everything. And they said they used to take her meals and take her washing, to do her washing for her.
Oh, the local citizens.
Citizens there remembered her there, yes.
Oh, no, but I mean, they brought her the food and like
Yeah.
all that. Wow, that was so nice.
Yeah, but she was not treated very well. I mean, she was sick. They said she was sick a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, that was an amazing one, right?
Yeah, but they, you know, now they say there's rumors on YouTube that they may have found her playing in the waters, the Pacific waters,
Mhm.
but they don't know for sure because it's like a mile down.
Oh, okay.
Send down some divers, and yeah.
And so the other thing was we went through a few of the different aliens, ETs.
Mhm.
Call them ETs or aliens? How do you refer to
I
them?
call them visitors.
Visitors.
The visitors, yeah.
Somebody
They're now
calls them.
called, oh gosh, there's a whole new name they're using now, which it'll pop up, you know. But ETs is as good a term as any because they are extraterrestrial. Most of them live outside of the Earth.
There was just the Greys, you had said that some live in the earth, right?
There are some groups that live here, yes, that are, and some that are transient. Sometimes they're off planet, sometimes they're here. And the whole project, can I give a little talk about that?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, back around 2009, my business client who I'd been working with, I worked with him for 9 years total on business and other projects. He said to me one time, he called me up and said, "Can you talk to the aliens?" And I said, "Well, I'd have to put together a protocol how to do that because
Right,
I just close my eyes and start talking to the aliens, you know."
right,
It's not what I do, although I've had some experiences myself.
right.
And so I put together a protocol where I put the questions that the client wanted answered, along with some that I wanted answered, into a text file, brought it up, and the client gave me 5 different alien groups that he wanted to contact.
Mhm.
It was his personal interest.
Right.
So I sat with the first one, which was a large gray to interview. And I sat at my computer and feeling very foolish and thinking, what am I doing?
Right.
Because this is the first time I'd ever done this in front of my computer. I wasn't in trance. I don't channel. I'm not a medium. I'm just a remote viewer, out of bodyer, just an ordinary lady, and sat there saying, "Okay, I'm going to start. Is there a large gray out there that would like to talk to me?"
Or you just put it out there.
Just put it out there,
Uh-huh.
and back came the answer.
Uh-huh.
I typed that in.
Mhm.
So I was in a quiet, focused state. I was not in a trance, as they say. So
Right.
I type, and I thought, okay, here we go. It was like being on a roller coaster. Once you're on it,
Yeah.
you're on it. So I just asked the questions, typed in the answers whenever I perceived them. It wasn't like talking to me. It was
Right.
just perception. And I had to ask clarifying questions because sometimes they'd say something and I'd say, "I don't understand. What does that mean?" And then
Mhm.
a little simpler. And they said things, I knew it wasn't from me because they said things like they considered that abductions were beneficial to humans. Well, I don't think that.
Right.
So there were things coming through from them that were
Right.
the way I think,
A different point of view.
a different point of view.
Yeah.
The very end, and I said, "Thank you very much and appreciate you giving me time," and closed it up, sent it off to the client, and he went, "Wow, go for the next one."
Well, when I was going through, when you sent a couple of them that I was interested in, one was the orbs, because everybody
Yeah.
sees
Oh,
these
the orbs are
orbs.
very interesting. Yeah.
And so can you just give us a little bit about the orbs?
The orbs were very difficult to talk to because as they gave their answers, it was like three answers in one. And I had to really focus hard to get the gist of what they were saying and get it typed up into the, and again, I had to ask clarifying questions. They can be called. They said they really enjoy interacting with people, and they're I suppose, cosmos wide. They're not restricted to just space. They're cosmos, and they're messengers. They will come and go. They will carry messages for any entity, any ET, any human. And they said when you sometimes will see a picture of an orb with a person in it, is generally that's who they're carrying messages either from or to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because usually the ones I've seen, it's more like it's at a meditation, a spiritual group, but I was at the Baha temple, and the founder of the Baha faith, they had a huge portrait of him. So I just took a picture and I didn't see anything, but there was this huge orb right on his knee. It was so fabulous, what I mean? Like just, and then I've been with others where there's hundreds, you know what I mean?
I know there's some groups that will call in just loads of them. Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. And the other one I was looking at was what were they called? RAL, because of
the RAL, yes.
RAL, because
that
of
was the
Mars,
That was the very last group that we were going to contact. It just took us a year to contact all of these groups. And, so the RAL, RALL, were the last group, and they call themselves that, and they live on Mars, but underground. And again, every time I sat down in front of one of these new groups, it was like, here goes, with no expectations. The client said, why don't you, before you talk to the RAL, bring up some pictures of water and also some verses about water or songs about water, because the RAL, from other reports, have a lack of water, of running water.
Oh, okay.
And so I did that, and I interviewed them for the first, because we were going to do 4 different interviews with them, because I want to ask them. And supposedly they live underground. They had seen our technology, and they thought somebody had sent them gifts. They considered them gifts.
Oh, I see, like the Mars rover.
Yeah, and they said, who's sending us these? And what do we do with them? And they keep moving away. They keep running away.
Oh, that's a funny one.
Yeah, and then they realized then when several had come, that they realized, because probably there were, writing or pictures on them. I don't know what would be on them. And they realized these were from another race, which was us.
Right.
To them, we're extraterrestrial, extra Mars.
Yeah.
We're off planet.
And so their water is underground. Is that where their water is?
Very much underground. And they kept saying, when are the humans coming? When are the humans coming? So they are okay about humans going to Mars. And
now, this was the early 2000s you contacted them, right?
No, this was back in, let's see, 2003 was when I started working for the client. This was around 2007, 8.
Oh, okay.
At that time, yeah.
Okay, well, Elon Musk will be there.
I think we are. I think if we're not there already, we will be.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
You think we're there already?
Yeah, and of course, these were all written up into a book called Voices from the Cosmos, which is printed by Headline Books. It's only available in Kindle form at the moment. I don't know why they've taken, but there are secondhand copies out there of the printed book.
Okay, so people can get that if they want to read it,
if they want to read it,
and because I'm going to be sending out this too.
Yeah, I put the whole of the ET interviews in the book, and then my co-author, C.B. Scott Jones, who has since passed over, he put a whole bunch of his writings and experiences in the book.
Awesome. Okay, so that's great. Then there was one more question just before we start going on your past here. Pat Price, like I just was going to ask you because I kind of remember that Pat Price had identified 2 or 3 ET sites where they were on the Earth, and he was like considered one of the best remote viewers.
Right, and there now is, yeah, and the first time I'd heard about it was it was this in 1999, after our first inaugural meeting of IRVA, the Remote Viewing Organization. We had a conference, and Skip Atwater, who was one of the military leaders of the Remote Viewing Group, he told us about Pat Price's remote viewing of these sites that were ET sites on Earth. And all of those have now been collected, all of Pat Price's projects, and all of the military guys who also did projects on the ET bases on Earth are now collected in a book that's being printed by the Center Lane Project.
Oh, it's being printed now?
It's in print, yes.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
And what's that going to be called?
The 18 something, let me see if I have the name of it. You know, I'm not too sure. I'd have to go and look for it. But you can go to the Central Lane Project and it'll be there. Or, you know, if you email me, I can find the name of it. Yeah, it's the 8810 project or something like that.
But didn't he find one in Alaska and
Alaska, Australia, the States, all over. Yeah, I think so, in Africa.
And then he met his demise.
Yeah, and there's controversy about that too.
Yeah.
Because he had a very odd thing happen to him in Las Vegas, where he had this sort of a seizure / heart attack and was taken to the local emergency room where he passed away. And these men in suits came and took the body, etc. But there were stories about him not being dead, that I believe it was Hal Puthoff, after he was supposedly dead, that saw him in a Washington mall and ran into him, but he disappeared. So
he just went black.
He went black. Now, Russell Targ says he was at the funeral, Pat Price's funeral.
Yeah.
And also other people said they were at the funeral and saw the body. But, you know, there's all these conflicting stories.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So now, in the last interview, we went through Pears, how you'd worked there and everything, and then you moved over to Nevada.
Right, to Las Vegas.
To Las Vegas, and then you got a job with Robert Bigelow.
I worked with Robert Bigelow for a couple of years, working for his foundation as a research coordinator. And my job
Want to tell what his foundation was for?
It was just the name. He was not a foundation in the legal sense.
Okay.
But he called it the Bigelow Foundation, and that's what.
I mean, it was for parapsychological.
It was for a whole bunch of stuff: the parapsychology stuff, the off-planet stuff, alternative health. And I did write up a write-up of all the work I did for Bigelow. And if people want to contact me, I can send them a copy of that too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then when you're there, this is where you got into UFO abductions, right?
I knew about them before I went to work with Mr. Bigelow. At the Pear Lab, it was well known. We had lots of people coming through the lab who were involved in the abduction phenomena and ETs, and so I knew about the phenomena, and I may have had some experiences myself. I wrote a book called Diary of an Abduction many years ago.
Mhm.
It's out of print, but you can find secondhand copies.
Oh, okay.
To
So
rewrite it.
why do you just think it maybe happened?
Sorry?
Why do you just think it maybe happened?
Because I don't know for sure. I know that there were lots of events where I was out of my bed somewhere else.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't OBE because I am able to go out of body, but these were not OBEs. They were very real experiences.
Okay. Okay. Well, that'll be another good book to read. And so,
I want to redo that one. Yeah.
and then during that time, then, well, maybe like with even the Pear thing at Princeton, was that when John Mack was
I
working?
went to a couple of John Mack's conferences. Yeah. Both before I met Mr. Bigelow and after.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Do
of
you want
course,
to tell our viewers who John Mack was?
John Mack was a psychiatrist in Boston, right? Not Boston. Yeah, but it was Boston, and who got very interested. He was a university professor, psychiatrist with private practice too, and he became very interested in the abduction phenomena. Believed it had a spiritual basis. That was his belief of it, and interviewed. He took people through individuals through regression, and worked with groups and individuals. But then sadly, he went to England and he was killed by a crashed car. A car crashed into him.
Because he was working through Harvard, wasn't he?
Yes, that's right. And
I thought he was
Harvard gave him a really hard time over his ET
I
interest.
just remember reading all of that, and it was just like everybody just pushing against him. Yeah.
Right, yeah, but he stayed firm. He wanted to uncover what this was. All these people were coming with similar stories.
I mean, a thousand. I mean, it was a lot of people.
There's a lot of people, and also Bigelow had also put out a roper poll. He paid for a roper poll. I don't know if you would know the roper polls.
I have it down here. Yeah, that was about the UFO abduction. I didn't know about it before I'd read about it.
Yeah, they sent out a whole bunch of questions to thousands of people, with just asking innocuous questions, which by themselves really didn't signify anything, but together the answers really meant that they'd had some really paranormal experiences, including ET exposure, and that when you looked at the social groups, the influential American group, which were a group of people who were the movers and shakers in the world, had more experiences than other people, which was
and then somewhere they said that the more educated.
Those were the people, the movers and shakers.
Now somehow doesn't Rockefeller like come in here? Did he fund it or?
Afterwards, yes, he also had. Well, he funded a lot. He funded Pear. And
Rockefeller funded Pear. I didn't know.
Partly, we got funding from a lot of different organizations.
Yeah. And then, but then this report also, or?
And the report, I don't think Rockefeller had. I think that was Bigelow money in that, but also Rockefeller had a lot of interest, and there were lots of different projects and surveys and series that he funded. Yeah.
So that's something you don't hear about a lot.
Yeah, but I did work with him.
So then you stayed, and then you had you were attending MUFON. So you met all of those people.
I've met a lot of MUFON people. I've given talks to MUFON, mostly in California.
Yeah. And MUFON stands for what?
The Mutual UFO Network.
Right, and then Linda Moulton.
Linda Moulton. Yeah.
Because I remember her big thing was cattle mutilation.
Right, she was very influential in that field. She would go out and in a very scientific way, go out and take measurements and talk to people and take photographs of cattle mutilations. And in fact, when we did the Area 2000 radio show with the foundation, Bigelow Foundation, she came on in each program to talk about recent developments in the mutilation field.
Because I remember, like, they would even just drain the blood out of the cattle, right?
That's right. They were found without blood and with incisions, precise incisions. Yeah.
And so so you leave the Bigelow Foundation and go to this this radio show?
No, we did that while I was working for him.
Oh, you did that while you were there.
Yeah, it was Bigelow funded. And we did that for 6 months. And each week we had a different interviewee. And Art Bell was the interviewer. Then we had George Knapp, who brought news, ET News. And Linda Moulton Howe talked about, we did a little break where she talked about any news in the cattle mutilation field. And we did that. And then we had usually a guest from lots of different paranormal fields. We did that for 6 months. And then Bigelow said, you know, we've done enough now. So let's close it. He has a mercurial mind, I call it.
But then it morphed into Coast to Coast with Art Bell, and millions of people are following it.
I know. Art Bell then took it off into Coast to Coast.
Right.
It was called something else in between, and then it became Coast to Coast.
I think it was just called the Art Bell Show.
At one time.
Yeah.
And
I remember back at that point, everybody I knew like was up at midnight listening to it.
Right, and it's become, and still is, very popular.
Yeah, I mean, but the speakers were great. It was somebody like exciting almost every night.
Yeah. Well, we had.
You were finding people for these interviews.
My job was to find, search out interesting people to go be on the show. So I had a waiting list of interesting people to be on the show, and I arranged, you know, for them to come on at certain time, etc. Yeah. So, and I had to find. I went out onto the internet. It was, you know, a little bit different then. It wasn't as available as it is now. So I had to search for news for George Knapp, UFO ET News, and also for Linda Moulton Howe, if there was anything else new in the cattle mutilation field that I came across, I would send to her.
Yeah.
Provided.
So you were doing some research. Yeah. So doing that research.
For each show. Yeah.
Well, that had to be just great. I remember one of the Art Bell shows, I mean, the really memorable one where they were having that drought in Texas. Yeah. And then he had all of his viewers like focused on rain, and then it hadn't been focused enough. And then they just got these floods.
Right.
It was huge, and they never did that again.
Yeah. It gets out of hand sometimes.
But I mean, that was like amazing that they did this whole thing with these like 1 million people, and then it did rain, you know?
Yeah.
That was
human intention can have physical effects. Yeah. So
then Robert Bigelow got interested in the Skinwalker Ranch or something.
Yeah, that was after I left. It was because I left to go to graduate school, and I was a foster mom and wife at that time. So, you know, there was always stuff I had to do, and my books. So, but Skinwalker Ranch, Mr. Bigelow and I did investigate some other places that had, like north of Las Vegas, that had paranormal, like the little town of Caliente and Pioche.
Oh yeah, you talked about Caliente. There were so many people that had
lots of activity there, but a lot of what they were seeing was terrestrial technology.
Oh, okay.
But there was an unknown element too there, so that we investigated, and
so a lot of this was new experimental government.
Yeah, they were seeing like the stealth, because one lady and her husband who ran a little grill there, a little restaurant, would take their lawn chairs out every evening to watch this black triangular craft coming down the canyon, accompanied by helicopters. And they figured out eventually that it was when it became public, that this was the stuff that they were watching.
It wasn't ETs.
That wasn't ET, no, but there were other unexplained events too.
And then did you go to Area 51?
I went, yeah, when I first started working for Bigelow, the university, which he funded part of the medical school, was going to have a donation from Area 51 of a lot of medical equipment.
Oh, so this was the University of
Nevada.
Nevada, okay.
Yeah. So there was a trip arranged for the university folks and Mr. Bigelow and some other visitors. And so I was included on that trip up to Area 50. We didn't actually go to Area 51. Mm-hmm. We Mercury, and we went out to the flats where they had all the bombs go off, and lots of places that the regular visitors don't go.
And what did you find interesting about it?
It was all interesting. It's all in the report, the Bigelow report that I can send. But one of the most interesting was north of the area where what they called the P tunnels. And these huge tunnels was where they placed, I mean, you had to get a little train to go into them. They were that big.
Wow.
They used to put equipment there and bombard it with, radioactivity to see how it was affecting technology. And so we got to go in the tunnels. And
wow.
Yeah.
They weren't radioactive anymore.
No, yeah, decades ago.
Mm-hmm. And you had written someplace, I forgot the name of this guy, but he had he made like a little gadget that he could determine frequencies.
That was my ex-husband, David.
Oh, okay, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, because let's see here. Hal Puthoff, who was one of the founders of remote viewing, as you know.
Right.
He had gone out in the field and he kept coming across this frequency that was, whenever anybody saw ET, a UFO, etc., these frequencies were recorded. So David was asked by Mr. Bigelow if he could put together a device that could emit that signal and could be taken to the field. So David put that together for him.
And so do people still use that? I mean, is that available?
No idea. I don't know. Probably not.
Oh, okay.
It's back around 92, let's see, 92.
And then what was that other thing I was going to with the Skinwalker Ranch, I looked up what Skinwalker meant. I didn't really realize that it was a Navajo entity, like people that had. What do you want to say? What Skinwalkers are?
I know about it from my colleague. I think I'd mentioned to him before, Ryan Burns, who has a ranch right next to.
Oh, that's the one who has a ranch next to it. Yeah.
Right. He's got property right next door to Skinwalker, and he has a lot of the same events happening on his land as happen on the Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah.
And does he see the wolves and the coyote? I mean, because they're supposed to shapeshift.
Prince, he has seen things in the distance. He doesn't claim to have seen a Skinwalker, but he knows all the the history and the theories behind it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and but I mean, it's legendary now. There are books out about Skinwalker Ranch.
And I know, it's so big. It's like,
and the name is based on a Navajo tradition or lore that the medicine man would dress up as a skinwalker, as a wolf, but could transform themselves into this entity.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so there are lots of stories. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? It's that area though that has that. It's also contained within that one area.
Well, not so much because, as I said, Ryan has a lot of stuff happening on his property.
No, I just
And
meant in that part of
oh,
Utah.
in that part of the world, yeah,
And that, yeah.
yeah.
And did they ever talk about why that is? What attracts this?
The underlying thing is that there may be something under the ground there.
Oh, I see.
That because they were told when they bought the ranch, when Mr. Bigelow and his colleagues bought the ranch, and I think the previous owner bought it too, they were told, do not dig in the land because things will happen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and then when my group did some work for George Knapp back in 2000, it was 2003.
Okay.
We were asked to remote view the ranch. And it actually made it into their book, Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Oh, okay.
And 3 or 4 of us did some remote viewing, and it was what we call front loaded, looking for unknown information.
Okay.
So we were looking at Skinwalker, but we didn't know what. So it turned out that there's probably a military presence of some kind, and a lot happening
Oh, you mean
underground,
underground?
both underground and above ground, probably on.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Oh, that's an interesting one.
yeah.
And then somewhere you worked with Mr. Bigelow sent you to work with Bud.
Oh, Bud Hopkins. Yes,
Want to talk
yeah,
about that? There's so
yeah.
many. We're doing all of this. Such
I
a
know. Yeah, and I've written all this up in my book Seer, Seer.
okay.
And then there's a sequel to that called Scribe.
Oh,
And
okay.
but Seer has basically the whole story, all of the stories in.
Yeah.
But Bud Hopkins was an abduction researcher. So he did regression work with people who'd had abduction experiences and helped them, to come to terms with some of their experiences. And he'd been sick, and he asked Mr. Bigelow if he could provide him with some help because he'd got very behind with his correspondence and his writing work. So Bud sent me out for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed at he has this brownstone, but we were staying down in the basement. So, yeah, so I had a little room in the basement, which was his daughter's room when she visited. At his own place. And so he had people coming in for regressions and for group meetings, and I helped him type up a lot of notes, answer mail for him. I did a lot during those 2 weeks that I was there, helped him with the backlog of his work.
And so did he have, like, with his regressions and all of that, did he have success?
I believe so. It's basically he wanted them to relate what they'd experienced and then come to the group meetings where people shared their experiences to show that each person was not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Others who had these experiences and could cope with them and how to cope with them.
And the thing is, so many people, it was a similar experience, right?
Very similar, yeah.
And most of them are abducted, like while they're sleeping, or how does that all work?
Oh, varied. Some were abducted from a beach, say, or from the bedroom, or from out in the countryside camping. So many different stories.
Because there's all that talk about how people are disappeared in the forests. There's so much talk about that. Is that does that have?
Well, there's all this story about the national parks. It's so many people disappear in the national parks.
Yeah,
They
I
have
mean,
no
a whole lot
idea.
of people every year.
Yeah, I mean, that's puzzling.
Yeah, and nobody's really gone after a remote.
Nobody's looking into it as far as we know.
Uh-huh.
And but people would be walking along a path and there would be a group of people. They'd turn a corner and the people who were in front of them would be gone.
Yeah.
Um, and no noise or, you know, or them falling off the cliff or something. I mean, they were just gone.
It's like amazing that hasn't been remote viewed, but maybe people think it's too dangerous to be like viewing it.
Well, there's so many things to be remote viewed. I only remote view when I'm what's called tasked, when somebody contacts me with a research project and says, we're looking into these disappearances. Or no, they don't always tell me what they're looking for. They say, we've got this enigma location and we want to look into it. Would you take on a project to do that?
Oh, okay. So when you're doing remote viewing, can you go forward and back? Can you go to the future and past?
Remote viewing can access the past and the future as well as the present, yes.
So so there could be so many remote viewers doing political things. Like, so you could just be going forward to who wins the presidential election.
Yeah, but I won't do that.
No, but I mean, but it seems like you could just be.
I'm sure there are remote viewers doing that, but I don't get involved in politics or religion.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
nonpartisan.
That keeps one healthy, wealthy,
Yeah.
and wise.
Yeah.
But I mean, and then what happens, I think, with a lot of that, even though they think not, that their ego gets involved, you know?
You can. It's easy for the ego to get involved. So when I sit down with a project, I have to get into what I call the zone. So again, I'm not in a trance, but I'm accessing my subconscious with my non-logical mind and looking for information. And usually I can work what we call front-loaded, which is I'll know what it is I'm looking for, but I'm looking for new information.
Okay.
Not what's already known.
Yeah. Because I know, like in the last interview, you had done things on Jupiter and Saturn, right?
Oh, that very much in the future. This was in 1994. I was tasked with the rings of Saturn. I'd already looked at Jupiter by myself.
Oh, okay.
Swan had done that years ago, so I went to the look as well. And with the rings of Saturn, I was tasked with some certain specifics to go look for new information. It wasn't until 11 years later when the Cassini probe went out to Saturn, and we started getting information back from the probe that I was able to confirm a lot of the remote viewing information that I'd accessed back in 94.
I see. Yeah. So I think when you're looking at it, like to be tasked with it, it kind of helps because then you're not bringing it to yourself with your ego. I mean, to keep just.
You have to keep your own ego out of it and just act like an investigator looking for new information.
Yeah. So are you working on things at this moment or not?
I've got one major client I'm working for at the moment. Well, actually two. One is taking a break at the moment. The one is I'm doing future stock reads for a particular
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, and he wants to know about particular stocks, you know, how they're going to be doing. So I go in with no expectation. I know nothing about stocks and shares. I don't own stocks and shares. I have no interest, you know.
Yeah.
So I go in non-committal and I'm front-loaded to a point, but about upcoming information, new information.
I mean, that should be so interesting with the all of the AI and all of that that's controlled.
There's a lot of AI. Yes. In fact, I did.
I mean, you'd have to go into that, don't you?
Well, I did two classes recently on AI and remote viewing with Carol. I've forgotten her last name. She's one of the IRVA folks. And it was fascinating because I'd always not approached AI because I thought it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
She made it so simple that I said, you know what, I could use that for finding projects for my students.
Uh-huh.
You know, I do classes
Yeah.
for remote viewing, and I could, if I had a project and I'd found something, I could put that information, that summary, into AI, and AI would give me a picture or text of it that I could give
Oh,
them.
I see what you're saying is putting your information in and then having it print
The
out.
AI take a look at it and give me a picture back,
Yeah.
you know, a graphic.
Oh, I mean, so you would be using AI as a remote viewer.
Well, as
Kind of.
for confirmation of the
Yeah.
data. Yeah.
Oh, that's something, except AI
Yeah.
does lie.
So I haven't really got into it in a big way yet. I want to dip my big toe in first. And
Yeah, but I mean, that's
yeah.
that's an amazing thing.
I learned you have to be very, very specific.
Yeah.
So you can tell it, you know, this is what I've perceived. Can you give me a graphic that illustrates this text?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, after that, you can make it even more specific. Yeah.
Wow, that's a whole new realm.
A whole new realm, and I'm just dipping my toe in at the moment.
Wow, I don't know where I even thought to ask you that, but anyhow.
Yeah.
But my brother is a music theorist, and so he works with Claude. Uh, and so Claude is with, I forgot that big one of the big companies, and
Okay.
like 2-3 times a week. And so he finds, you know, he said Claude is like a 5-year-old genius. He's like so brilliant.
Yeah.
He lies and tells little fibs, you know. So
Yeah.
it's so funny. I'm looking at my brothers, you know, like with the printout, like what they're doing, and my brother going, now Claude, you know that's not true. And then the comes back on the computer. I know, David. He
Yeah,
acknowledges it, you know. So
yeah,
you can even
because
ask them.
yeah, because the AI is not totally 100% accurate.
Right.
It comes back with citations for, um, you know, papers on different topics, but some of them are not real.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very cautious and double check what comes back from AI.
They had something with one of the Supreme Courts statewide where they had all of the lawyers were giving all of their different legal briefs and all of this.
Yeah.
And then they started noticing there were laws in there that weren't even on the books, that didn't exist. And it turned out then they all found out they were like just going into AI and doing all of their legal work.
Oh, yes.
And
you
so
know,
and so they AI had just made up the laws that didn't exist.
yeah, so that's why you have to be very diligent when you use AI
Yeah.
to confirm, you know, that what they're giving you is correct. And kids are now using AI for their homework rather than writing an essay, say, on a battle of Trafalgar. They'll just go to AI and have it printed out, and then they give that in as homework.
I know that's another problem. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big problem, even in the university. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I want to use it to generate targets for my students.
oh, that's
So I have 3-day remote viewing classes
okay.
online,
Uh-huh.
and I can have up to 4 students at a time.
Okay.
And this is what I call tactical remote viewing. This is putting remote viewing to work. So they spend 2 days getting up to speed with remote viewing protocols, and then a whole day on Sunday, all online, working a case as a team.
Okay.
But for their practice targets, I want to use AI to generate some targets for me. So please provide for me either video or text, small projects that will illustrate certain events happening in the real world. So you have to be very specific what you ask.
So like when you're doing that kind, do you give the coordinates where it's happening or
Well,
not?
we create a coordinate for when we get a potential target. It has to have a coordinate or an alphanumeric attached to it as
Okay.
the address of that target.
I see. That's what the coordinate is, the numeric. I see. I
It
thought you
used to
were
be
giving.
a geographic coordinate decades ago.
Yeah.
Now it's just like a little GPS, you know, ABC 1 2 3 kind of.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because there used to be so many numbers and a way you did it?
It depends on the teacher. Each teacher has their own way of creating. They call it a tasking number now.
Okay.
I still like to use coordinate because that's the Ingo term.
Right.
But so yeah, so I call it a GPS for the subconscious.
Oh, so that's a good one. So
Yeah.
like, so then when we put this up, I'll put your email and how to contact if anybody's interested in the classes.
Yeah, they can go, you give my email and my website,
And
which
then
is still Mindwise Consulting. Yeah.
yeah, and then we'll do the thing for the ETs.
The ET interviews, the Excel file. Yeah, very
So
much so.
great. So this has been great, Angela. I mean, we went through the whole thing.
I hope you're interested. Hope it's been interesting.
No, it was. The first one I got like lots of, sometimes I do them and they don't hear a peep. But like different people like ask, different things or complained about this or loved that, so it was good. You knew they were really watching it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And they can contact me, they can email me. I don't pick up the phone unless I know if it's an unknown number. I only pick up, but if they call and they particularly want
They can just email you and then call you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks again.
Yeah.
It was
okay. Thank you, Carol, very much.
Bye, everyone.